Testing. 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 Testing.
Hymnals, is that true? Number 1017, Building a New Way. Let's try Building a New Way. Okay. And if you church singers want to help.
I'm not going to be by myself.
On the inside page, you'll see some sheet music. It says, the tide is rising. We're going to sing that during the service, but I just want to introduce it now so we have a better chance of, since it's an unfamiliar melody, doing it. So this is like a rehearsal.
This is
then as we go through the song, you'll see we just replaced, as I call it, a zipper song. So we just replaced the first 4 words and sing those as we go through. So the task is mighty, the land is holy. Let's just do one other verse. Let's do the storm is raging.
The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Great, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Don Katahdin, and I am a member of the Worship Associates Ministry. Our minister is the Reverend Tom Belote, who will be preaching next week. This week we have, our preacher this morning is the Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson, who serves as the Executive Director of UU Justice NC, which is the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. In this role, she has the pleasure of working with over 20 UU congregations across the state to do justice work spanning racial, economic, environmental, electoral, reproductive justice, and more. She is also proud to be the affiliated community minister of this congregation. I especially welcome any visitors or newcomers with us this morning and call your attention to the back of the order of service where it says, "Welcome guests and newcomers." Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. I also welcome any online, welcome those of you attending online, and note that the hymn lyrics and all of the text and elements of the service will be displayed in the live stream screen. For the complete order of service, which includes the weekly announcements, the schedule, and the upcoming events, there's a link in this morning's email. It usually comes about 7:30 a.m. and on the homepage of our website. And from this, you can view the file online or download it in a variety of formats. Our Sunday social will be held by Rachel Rose of the Welcoming Ministry. Right after the service is the in-person social will be held right outside in the Cast Courtyard, which is in front of the Jones Building. The online social will be held at 1:00 p.m., and the Zoom link for this is also found in the weekly announcements. After the service, we invite you to gather in either the Cast Courtyard or the space behind the Jones Building, which includes the playground. We are continuing to mask inside on Sunday mornings as a way of striving to be an inclusive community. All outdoor areas are mask-optional spaces. The community room in the Jones Building is also mask-optional. And in case you haven't already done so, please turn off or silence all cell phones. The one special announcement I would make is that Friday is the last day to bid in the auction, so please don't let that date slip by without bidding. This morning's Share the Plate donations benefit Habitat for Humanity, and I invite Kathy Ferranola to come forward to tell us more about it.
Thank you. I have to tell you, it's been an exciting 10 days for our community church Habitat for Humanity project. On October 5th, the Tritt High family was finally able to close on the house we built for them last year due to some COVID-related delays. And on October 8th, just a week ago yesterday, we celebrated the start of a new home in the same neighborhood in Hillsborough, and several of our community church Habitat volunteers were there to begin construction. From our first Habitat home in 1994 to these more recent homes, our church continues our dedication to providing safe, affordable homes for our neighbors in need. We've built 24 Habitat homes and 4 townhouse blocks for low-income citizens throughout Orange County, with many of them occupied by the same families for whom we built them. We even did it during the pandemic, although it may have taken us a bit longer, but we haven't given up. And because we've never given up, we've changed the lives of families, and we've helped build entire neighborhoods throughout Orange County. Working with us this year in our Building Hope partnership are St. Thomas More Catholic Church, United Church of Chapel Hill, Holy Trinity Lutheran, Chapel of the Cross, Church of the Holy Family, and UNC's Newman Catholic Student Center. Our partnership pays half the cost of the house, and Habitat pays the other half. Families pay the Habitat portion back in no-interest mortgages. And these families work with us for at least 275 hours to help build their homes, and sometimes the homes of others. So our work and our donations are providing them with a hand up, not a handout. To help fund our share of this year's home, please be generous in today's Share the Plate. Checks should be made out to Community Church of Chapel Hill UU with STP Habitat in the memo line. You can also donate online on the church website. And if you'd like to see photos of some of the houses and the more recent families, please stop at the Habitat table in the courtyard after the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Now please stand in body or spirit for our opening hymn, Love Will Guide Us, on page 131 of the gray hymnal.
Don has just a couple inches on me, one or two. Our opening words this morning come from the Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis. We need a love revolution to rise up out of the ashes of our current reality. Not the sentimental love of romantic comedies and greeting cards and pop music, but a demanding, heart-transforming, fierce love. A fierce love that breaks through tribalism to help humans realize an inextricable and irrevocable connection, and understand that the liberation, livelihood, and thriving of all people and planet are tied up together. And in that spirit, please join me in reading the chalice lighting words in our order of service. We light our chalice and kindle the spirit of fierce, radical love. As the sacred conduits of that love, may we feel its power always at our fingertips, yearning to burst forth and transform the world.
To say what's right, so we shout side by side. We
Each week, we hold a time in our service for the sharing of significant joys and sorrows. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like to share, you are welcome to come forward, place a stone in the water, speak your name into the microphone, and briefly state your joy and sorrow. Regarding personal information of others, please use first name only. We now enter into this time of tenderness and trust.
I'm Gray Brown. I'm just trying to fill the space. I announced this last week, but I think it was second service. But my daughter, Jessie Clay, and her fiance, her beloved, Angelo, were married yesterday in snow camp, and it was very lovely. And our wonderful Eileen Reagan was the harpist. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Heidi, and I'm here because I'm extremely grateful for what my sister and brother-in-law are doing for me, my daughter, my son-in-law, and my 2 grandchildren. They're helping us immigrate to the United States. My English isn't perfect anymore, okay, but, and I have never seen people that have such big hearts and helping us so much. And I'm just extremely thankful. I don't have the words to say how thankful I am. They're really special people.
My name is Bill Rote, and I place this stone of sorrow for the victims in Raleigh, for the families involved. It just is a terrible incident, and once again shows what we need to do to work to help reduce gun violence.
I place this last stone for all the joys and sorrows that were left unspoken this morning, but we still hold in our hearts. All of the joys and sorrows we hold, in the warm embrace of our beloved community. Let us now enter into a time of meditation. Spirit of life and love that moves within us and among us today, may we know that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe and to each other. May every sorrow shared today feel lighter because it is held by many, and may every joy ripple out to each of us, touching and nourishing each heart. And in these great times of great peril and great possibility, may we bring our sacred gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity and believe in its power to transform our world. Now, please join me as we move to a silent meditation. Amen, and blessed be. You may be seated for our next hymn, Return Again, number 1011 in the teal hymnal. And now we move into our time of offering for the continued flourishing of this church. If you wish to give to Habitat for Humanity and writing your check, as Kathy mentioned, just write STP in the memo line. If you wish to give online, use your phone camera to scan the quick response QR code in your order of service. It's on the bottom of the back of the order of service, I think. Freely have we received of gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. And now may our gifts be generously given and gratefully received.
We rise, humbly hearted rise, won't be divided, rise, with Spirit to guide us, rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here in hope, in prayer. We find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here and we rise.
ancestors surround us. Rise. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here, and we rise up from the wreckage. Rise with tears and with courage. Rise, fighting for life. We rise in hope, in prayer. We find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here, and we rise, humbly hearted. Rise, won't be divided. Rise, with spirits to guide us. Rise.
Friends, that is one of my favorite songs. I've never heard it sang in a UU church, so thank you for that gift. Glenn and the choir always, as usual, got us ready to rise this morning. Thank you. May I note, too, this song by Batia Levine, one of our Jewish siblings in the movement, is really one of the anthems of our movement right now, and our closing hymn is by another Jewish sibling, Reverend Rabbi, Shoshana Mira Friedman. So just an emphasis on the collaboration, the theological collaboration of movement, doing together what we cannot do alone. Sorry, I just had to riff there a second. Our reading today is actually a story called The Rabbi's Gift. And I don't see Donna in the house, so I won't be as nervous to tell a story. Its original author is unknown, but I have adapted a retelling of the story by M. Scott Peck. So once upon a time, there was a monastery in a beautiful forest. Though it had once been a thriving order, over time the community had declined, and now there were only 5 monks left. The abbot, who was the leader of the monastery, and 4 other monks. The order was dying. Nearby the monastery, tucked deeper into the forest, there was a little hut where a wise rabbi would occasionally go for spiritual retreats. And one day, while concerned for the future of his monastery, the abbot, while gardening, looked out into the distance and saw smoke coming from the little chimney of the wise rabbi's hut. So the abbot decided to visit the great rabbi and ask if he could offer any advice. The rabbi graciously welcomed the abbot into his hut and listened while the abbot shared his fears that they wouldn't be able to save their beloved community. Finally, the time came for the abbot to leave. The men hugged, and the abbot said, "Rabbi, your prophetic wisdom is known across our land. Is there no advice that you can give me to help save our dying order?" "I have no advice to give you," the rabbi said, "but I can tell you this good news. The one who will save you is among you." Upon return to the monastery, the abbot was greeted by the other monks, and they said, well, what did he say? And the abbot said, "Friends, he told me that the one who will save us is among us." And in astonishment, they looked at one another while trying to process these prophetic words. In the days and weeks and months that followed, the old monks pondered this news. Could the rabbi really have meant one of us, monks here in the monastery? If he meant one of us, he surely meant Father Abbot. He has been leading our order for a generation. Well, on the other hand, maybe he meant Brother Thomas. He is a holy man. Everyone knows that Brother Thomas is a man of the light. Well, at least we can rule out grumpy Brother Eldred. Wow, is that man grumpy? I mean, I'm always like, good morning, Brother Eldred, and he's always like, oh, whatever. Well, then again, Brother Eldred always has a valid point to make. He's usually right, actually. Whoa. Maybe he did mean Brother Eldred. Of course, I know the rabbi wasn't referring to me. I'm just an ordinary person. But what if it is me? What if I am the one who will save our monastery? Please, God, not me. I could not have such great purpose, could I? As they each reflected in this manner, the old monks began to treat each other with extraordinary faith and reverence on the off chance that one of them was, in fact, the great Savior. And on the remote chance that each monk himself might be the Savior, they each began to treat themselves with extraordinary faith and reverence too. Over time, the energy in the monastery began to change, and they even began to imagine that their monastery could once again thrive. Now, because the forest was so beautiful, people would still occasionally come to visit the monastery, to picnic in its tiny lawn, to walk along its paths, to sit quietly in its chapel. And as they did so, without even being conscious of it, they began to sense an aura of extraordinary holiness, which seemed to surround each of the monk and permeate the whole place. There was something compelling and empowering about it. Without knowing exactly why, they began to come back to the monastery more frequently to visit and to pray. They began to bring their friends to share this special place, and their friends brought their friends. And the former grumpy Brother Eldred even became the official greeter of the monastery, welcoming guests to the grounds with a smile and a kind word. Who knew? In time, some of the younger men who came to visit began to talk more and more with the elderly monks, and after a while, one asked if he could join the order. And then another, and then another. Soon the monastery once again housed a thriving order, and thanks to the rabbi's gift, became a great beacon of faith, peace, and love. Well, good morning again. It's great to be back here. It's been a minute since I've been here. I miss you all. I hope you are having a great fall. I hope something is feeding your spirit and nourishing you right now. Any state fair goers this week? A few? All right, all right. Any football fans in the house? Anybody catch the UNC Duke game last night? I was at that game probably later than I should have been. It was a tight one, but we pulled out a win, and Bill, I'm happy for your Astros. A lot moving this fall. For those of you who don't know me, as Don mentioned, I'm Reverend Lisa. I have the privilege of serving as the affiliated community minister of this congregation, and my work is leading our state justice ministry, UU Justice NC. We currently work with 22 of our congregations across North Carolina with the mission of joyfully organizing UUs to co-create a transformative movement for justice through spiritual grounding, collaboration, and imagination. We support congregations in their local work. We work very closely in relationship with our national UU partners, but above all, we are well positioned, uniquely positioned to contribute at a state level, to organize UUs to powerfully be a part of statewide campaigns and movements that honor the worth and dignity of every person and create equity and justice within the sacred interconnected web of our state. One of the biggest things on many of our hearts and minds right now is the overturning of Roe. And as you know, because of the growing number of abortion bans in our neighboring states, we are quickly, rapidly becoming one of the only places in the entire South to legally access abortion. And even still, in our state, we only have 14 abortion clinics, including this community's Planned Parenthood of Chapel Hill. By the way, shout out to our reproductive justice team here at Community Church, who is powerfully organizing to meet the moment. But we face an even worse scenario, and we know this, that abortion access in North Carolina could soon be gone. As we are in this moment, dangerously close to a supermajority of anti-abortion votes in our General Assembly. Of course, this would have a massive implication not only on the people of our state, but on the entire South. And that is just one of the issues that is at stake in our midterm elections. Another huge effort right now in our state is the continued fight to expand Medicaid. Many state leaders say that this would be the most transformative piece of legislation in decades. It would expand health coverage to 600,000 people in our state. We have to pass this because we know that every day that goes by is another cancer diagnosis missed. It is another addiction that goes untreated. It is another massive medical bill that pushes a family further into debt. You may know these stats. The federal government will pay for 90% of Medicaid expansion in perpetuity. The Biden administration has sweetened the deal with a $1.5 billion incentive. We have to get this passed. And the fact that our state legislature has not passed this bill yet is morally unacceptable. And this fall, the North Carolina Utilities Commission is making monumental decisions about the energy future of our state. The powerful utilities company, Duke Energy, has put forth carbon plans that continue to rely too heavily on fossil fuels instead of boldly transitioning to new renewable energy infrastructure. And this state-level work is now more important than ever with the recent Supreme Court decision in West Virginia versus EPA that now puts emission responsibilities on the state. It's up to us now. The stakes keep getting higher, don't they? The tide is rising literally this month with the devastating impacts of Hurricane Ian and in so many other ways in our country and in our world. The tide is rising, but in the words of Rabbi Shoshana Mira Friedman, the tide is rising, but so are we. We are rising up and our organizing is working. For the first time in a long time, we have victories to build off of. It's been a minute since I've been able to preach and talk about momentum. This August, in the first ballot initiative since the overturning of Roe, the people of Kansas overwhelmingly voted to protect abortion rights. And this fall, we are a part of a powerful movement of people across our country, fueled by our belief in reproductive justice and deeply motivated to vote our values during the midterm elections. Can you feel that energy in your community, in this state, in this country? After nearly a decade of political disagreement over the last few months, leaders in the General Assembly have somehow miraculously changed their position. Very convenient timing. Now they say they support Medicaid expansion. It's a win-win-win for our state. Yes, that is huge, but they are still dragging their feet, still playing political games with people's lives. But this is still incredible progress that we need to build off of. And we have some incredibly significant federal legislative victories to celebrate. After so many had lost hope for a climate bill this summer, Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which, among other things, is the largest investment in green energy in our country's history. Not to mention that the Electoral Count Act, the legislation that would prevent a future coup attempt and clarify the role of the vice president in the certification process, is also poised to pass this fall with expansive bipartisan support. These are big wins. And we know momentum is incredibly powerful because the spiritual function of momentum is renewed hope for our future. Hope that despite all evidence to the contrary in our world, that maybe, just maybe, we can turn the ship around. But actually, it's about something even deeper than hope. It's about faith. Not faith that over time progress will naturally happen. That idea is perhaps the most dangerous myth of our modern times, and we know all too well that it is not true. But rather, faith that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice because we bend it. That is faith in us. And that's what our story was really about today. In the story of the rabbi's gift, not unlike our world today, the abbot feared that the monastery was in serious trouble. But then he saw the smoke coming from the rabbi's hut in the distance and went to the wise spiritual leader seeking guidance, and the rabbi told him, "Fear not. I give you this good news. The savior of your monastery is among you." In that instant, it sparked hope, which grew into faith. And that faith had the power to change everything. They began looking at each other with greater reverence for their gifts. They started looking deeper within themselves, believing in their own power, in their own gifts. They began to imagine that their monastery could once again thrive. And then, together, they realized that dream. The moral of the story is, of course, that the people of the monastery already had everything they needed. That the power to transform their community already existed within them and among them, and the only thing holding them back was a lack of faith in themselves. Let me ask you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine if one morning we were gathered here on a Sunday, just like today, and suddenly a portal opened up right here above the piano. And a time traveler stepped through and ran to the microphone and said, "Hi, I am a community church member from the future." Stay with me here. And she said, "Friends, I come with good news. You did it. You and the great justice movement of your time saved us. Our world runs entirely on sustainable energy now. Our country's democracy is strong. We've regained our reproductive rights, have freedom over our bodies, freedom to love who we love. The Triangle has affordable housing. And the most amazing thing of all, you're never going to believe this. We all have health insurance and jetpacks, but health insurance. Healthcare is now considered a human right. After that horrible stretch in the early 2020s, something changed. And you all were ready. And it took decades, but our country came together and created something that changed the world. And our faith and this congregation, you all were a big part of it. We just wanted to come back to say thank you. You all are amazing. Oh, portal's closing, gotta go. Imagine that. We would all be like, wow, the Triangle has affordable housing? But seriously, we would be like, we did that? We saved our rights? We saved our democracy, our earth? We did that? And just like in the story today, we might start to look around at each other and recognize each other's gifts with greater reverence. We might start to reflect on our partners in justice all across our state and country and feel our collective abundance and power in a way that we hadn't felt before. We might start to imagine, even in detail, how our movement could actually pull off the things that the time traveler described. It's sort of a fantastical scenario, I get that, but why not us? We may not actually have a time machine or reassurance from the future, but we have access to something far more powerful: faith. Not faith in some divine intervention, but in us. In the power of our movement. Why not us? Why not now? Sometimes the tipping point is when enough people believe in the tipping point. And when they are willing to will it into existence. This is a time to be bold in imagining and co-creating actions to build momentum, to achieve wins in our state, and to help create that tipping point in our country. And right now, you know what I'm going to say next. Right now, we are called to powerfully contribute to the nonpartisan voting work in the run-up to the election. This is the moment of action that deeply impacts every issue that we care about. 23 days till the election, 4 days to the start of early voting. Right now, your congregation is one of 22 UU congregations across our state who has come together to write over 35,000 postcards this year in partnership with Reclaim Our Vote. Yes, let's applaud that. A big shout out to Lisa Lackman, who is your postcard captain, the rest of your fabulous Get Out the Vote crew. You know the usual superheroes, Melva, Ruth, Dorothy Hammett, leading our UU the Vote efforts. And speaking of that crew, go talk to them in the next few days, because they are talking and they are promoting this week an exciting opportunity to help us go all in this final run-up to the election. Every Thursday night since early September, UU Justice NC has been teaming up with Carolina Jews for Justice and the New North Carolina Project Foundation in our Faith in Action phone bank. We are calling voters of color across the state, helping them to feel empowered and equipped to vote their values this fall. We have already made over 11,000 calls, and we are aiming for 20,000. The energy of this phone bank is truly incredible. I don't know what you've heard about phone banks, but it's not true. I kind of do know what you've heard about phone banks. We always begin every phone bank with deep spiritual grounding and connection. We end every phone bank with a Whitney Houston dance party to higher love. And dancing is not required, but highly encouraged. And every week we are being joined by UU congregations across the country who have got our backs. University Unitarian in Seattle, Washington, First U in Portland, Oregon, All Souls DC. Every week we are being joined by UUs across the country, as well as our Jewish partners across the state and country. And every week we switch back and forth with a UU and then a Jewish congregation hosting each week. 2 weeks ago, the Unitarian Church of Portland hosted, and because they hit their goal of 20 participants, their music director, Duro, has dyed his hair and beard blue. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Because in 2020, this congregation was the very first congregation to ever create a turnout challenge of that nature, and our beloved Marian dyed her hair the color voted on by this congregation, which I believe was purple. Now, because you did that, because Marian was willing to dye her hair, because you were willing to show up to meet that challenge, this is now a tradition that has increased turnout at every single phone bank that we have held in the last 3 years. You did that, so thank you. Now, you might be thinking, wow, we should host a phone bank. Well, I'm really glad you said that, because indeed you are. Join us for the next 3 weeks, every Thursday night from 6:30 to 8:30, but especially on Thursday, November 3rd, where Community Church will be hosting our final evening of phone banking in partnership with Kahila. What a beautiful way to end 8 weeks of phone banking with perhaps one of the most powerful relationships between a UU church and a Jewish congregation that we have in our state, with the partnership, especially through our IJI committee of Kahila and Community Church showing up together. Please join us. Finally, we will be contributing to voter safety and security at the polls through our 4 layers of volunteer opportunities during early voting and on Election Day. And I invite you to consider which of these opportunities might be the right fit for you. Becoming a poll worker with the Board of Elections. Volunteering as a vote protector at polling places with our partners at Democracy North Carolina. You could be a help desk worker with our friends at You Can Vote. Or you can volunteer to help create more joy and safety at the polls and combat voter intimidation through Blueprint North Carolina's safe sites. I wish it weren't true, but we have to tell the truth that we have a lot of places in our state where it is not safe to vote. And our partners are calling us to be there and to contribute to this massive, beautiful, interconnected system to help simply create the conditions in which somebody can cast their ballot. For more information, please visit our brand new website, uujusticnc.org, or you can come visit me after the service. I know I've said a lot. You might be looking at your watch. Let me just say that every single one of us is essential to this movement, is essential to this moment. And in these last 23 days before the election, we need absolutely every single one of us in the game. Let me end with this. If 3 years ago, a time traveler appeared in this sanctuary on a Sunday and said that there would be a pandemic that would shut down this country and this world not for weeks or months, but for years, could you have imagined it? Would you have believed them if they said that there would be a violent coup attempt at the US Capitol to overturn the results of a presidential election? Could you have imagined a world where we lost the right to have an abortion, where gay marriage and contraception were in danger of being taken away? Maybe that one. Would you have believed that the Supreme Court would ever rule that the Environmental Protection Agency does not have the authority to protect the environment through emission standards? Could you ever have imagined that? These last few years have stretched our imaginations for how bad things can get. So why can't this moment also help us to interrogate the limits of our imagination for what is possible? As a movement for justice, why can't this experience that we have been through together help us to imagine radical, earth-shaking transformation? In the past few years, we have become more deeply connected to our partners in justice than ever before. We have witnessed the resilience and the ingenuity of our communities, the depth of our spiritual resources, the depth of our spiritual strength. It is time to see that we are the ones we've been waiting for. It is time to believe, to really believe in our hearts that we were made for this moment. Friends, I come with good news. The power to save us is among us. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn, with your words in the order of service, "The Tide is Rising."
Thank
The words for extinguishing the chalice are in your order of service. Please join me in speaking them if you wish to do so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. To the musicians, speakers, ushers, greeters, sound technicians, and everyone who made this service possible, let's give thanks.
First-time worship associate here. You crushed it. You crushed it.
Let's see, what's the last thing? Yes, the words to Shalom are also in your order of service, and please join in singing. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's right. In keeping with COVID protocols, if you choose not to hold hands in the singing of Shalom, hold them over your chest like this. If you're comfortable holding hands, extend them out to either side, and now we can sing.